Right, it's time for an update. This greenhouse is absolutely rammed. Now that there's not going to be any more frosts, I'm going to take out things like the courgettes. There's a courgette there, another one there. So these pots can go outside. Some of these other things can now go outside. The celery that has been sitting here, now it's safe to go outside and sit here along everything else. And the other one will come and sit next to them over there. Now they will be sitting in these troughs so that they'll always have water. Celery is a bog plant, so it doesn't mind having wet feet anyway, so that's not a problem. And these things have really perked up. Oh, I must catch another bee, but I'll let him out in a minute. These peas seem to be doing okay. These are still a little bit scrabbly, but that may be because they were transplanted and they were rather root bound in those little modules. So this should be okay, and next time obviously I'll direct sow them now that everything's sorted. So it's the usual summer jobs of weeding, watering, little bit of planting and harvesting, and that doesn't leave much time for anything else. So any building projects or any major jobs will have to wait till the autumn. Now we have got some weeds coming in between the skirt and the bed, but they're easy enough to deal with. So all of that has had to come up from there to here, and oops, that one I managed to find a hole, and that is all it took to weed this side. And the same with this side. Nothing, and then we've got a bindweed, and it's had to come all the way up that, and I'm pulling all of this. So it's had to come through and produce all of this in the dark, and as soon as it can start photosynthesizing, I pull it and the root has to start again. So I managed to pull all of that, and eventually the root will tire because it cannot keep producing. You can see all this white stuff because it's not photosynthesized. Now, if I was being careful, taking care to take all this stuff off. And that's all the weeding I've done since I built this bed. And then if I do that, the sides of this bed, I will not have any problems. Now, despite my efforts, I still managed to get some bindweed coming up in the bed itself, but I can deal with that because it's easy enough to pull them, and anything like little bits of grass. And you know, obviously this is all been sitting there with lots of weed seeds in it, and I've dug it up and put it on top of this bed, so there's going to be a lot of weed seeds coming to the surface, but they're easy enough to get rid of. And I don't know how a potato has managed to get itself in here. Is that one potato or two potatoes? I don't know, but I'll sort these out. These tomatoes are tumblers and they're supposed to hang off hanging baskets, but if I plant them like that and let it droop, it's going to put a lot of stress on this edge, and if it has a lot of weight on it, it could damage the stem here, so I need support here. The other thing is, I don't want all the foliage being right up against this wood, because this will get wet and the foliage will be wet when it rains, and then if there's no airflow between them, the plants could develop diseases. So I want to keep the tomatoes away from this wood. But first, have a guess at what I'm going to do with this. It's like a towel rail, but it's taller than me. So what am I going to do with it? You'll have to keep watching to find out. The courgette seems to be doing okay out here. They're coming up. So I'm happy with that. These need to be sorted and planted still. I've planted the sweet corn and there are a few spots left, so I put some amaranth in with it. I've still got a few more left. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put them, but I've got them. This hedge needs cutting, so I'm going to bring a hedge trimmer in, cut it, and the trimmings will mulch this bed. That bed already had the turnips and the beetroot in, and I put a nasturtium there, and the aim is to have it go up here and climb onto this trellis. Well, that's the aim, but our friend bindweed is trying to claim that as its own. And I put some beetroot on this side. I've only just put it in, so I put a double layer of shade protection on it so it gets a little bit of a relief. And this bed by the Anderson shelter has got a mix of Swiss chard and scarlet kale. Now they're very closely put together, so they'll only give me baby leaves, which is what I want. But something went in and had a dig in there yesterday, so maybe a few losses. But hopefully with this net, it should be okay. Right, it's time for an update. The tomatoes started turning red. Most are still green. The greenhouse is finally cleared of all the other plants, and everything has been potted up into the larger pots. The basil is going great. I need to actually cut that and start using it. Being that busy, I haven't had a chance to do much cooking. But yeah, everything is doing well. And you know, you get your red tomato, but not ready for salad yet. The chilies are ready, or some of them are, anyway, one of these. The aubergines doing fine. The peppers are doing okay. They've just been potted up. They've been sitting in smaller pots for ages because I didn't have the room to put these big pots in because there was everything else in here. But yeah, they're going. The aubergines doing well. Now that they're in bigger pots, I'll give them a feed. This yellow should be okay. I mean, the newer stuff is okay. It's just this was when it was in small pots. These peppers are okay. This aubergine is almost ready to eat. Well, I mean, I could pick it and eat it, but I'm waiting for some of these little ones to catch up, and then I can do something with it. Not much you can do with one small aubergine, unless you're a fan of Goodness Gracious Me comedy series. That won't make sense to anybody except a UK audience. But yeah, the aubergine seems to be coming in thick and fast now. And the marigolds seem to have done the trick of keeping the whitefly out of here, because the plants seem to be alright, apart from this one, which there is a bit of dust and dirt. But something seems to have gone to this pepper. So what I might do is just take this one out, leave it outside for a few days, and see if one of the ladybirds is kind enough to get rid of all these. But all the other pepper plants seem to be fine, so it's just this one that seems to have a bit on it. So I don't know whether it's just a sickly plant or what. And I've still got plants waiting to be planted. This bed needs to be planted. I've got these tomatoes that need planting. Those brassicas need planting. The onions need going onto the other plots and being planted there. I've got squashes, and those marrows need to go on the other plot. Some of these cucumbers and gherkins need to go on a trellis, so that's got to be sorted. I've just potted up this loganberry, so that should be happy. And these early courgettes are doing great guns. I mean, that one is, well, it's still not ready yet, but it's getting there, and there is quite a lot of them, so I'm pleased with that. The sweet corn are mulched with the prunings from the hedge, so when I pruned it, I chucked the pruned bits onto here, so that will mulch and help keep the roots cool. But it's starting to go a little yellow. Well, it's partly being transplanted, and I will come in and give them a feed tomorrow. This bunch of containers, some of these strawberries need potting up. I haven't had time yet. The potatoes are coming up, so that's fine. This side is horrible. Still no sign of the people from the council are supposed to collect it, but we'll wait and see what happens. But this side, that pak choi has gone mental. I'll have to start picking. So it's a case of, what do I pick for dinner tonight? Basil to make a pesto, or pak choi for a stir fry. And mint and peas are coming along, looking a bit peaky, but we've had this really hot spell, so I don't know whether that's what's got them upset. Celery is doing great. These other tomatoes are all cordon tomatoes, so that's the San Marzano cooking tomatoes, and the other tomatoes are just waiting to be planted, but I took them out of the greenhouse yesterday so I could pot the other plants up. So I've left these for a couple of days to sort of harden up a little bit, and then they'll get planted here. So I mean, this side is mostly clear. That side, things are encroaching from over on that side. So I will sort those out tomorrow, and then this lot will be planted. They are flopping around a little bit, but they are cordon tomatoes and they're quite big, so that's to be expected. They'll get supported by this, so that's not a problem. I'll just weave them onto this and they'll be fine. Now, this is what happens when there's a sharp edge. This is okay, but with more weight, and if the wind sort of starts moving it about, it could get damaged, which is why I want to use this thing to support the tomatoes a bit more. Right, so I put that in. So I've connected this because there was this piece in the middle. I've had to put another little piece here and then connect it through that. So that is connected to this, and then this is connected through into that. I've put this black wire, I've tied it at this end, and I put it through the hole that was there. So that comes along, goes along here, all the way along, goes through that hole, and I pulled it as tight as I could and tied it off at this end, so the tomatoes will come over and bend over this rather than just bending over here, and that gives them a bit more room to have a bit of air circulation between them and the boards when the boards get wet and the leaves get wet. So this gives them plenty of air circulation and it'll keep things dry. You'll see that when I put the plants in. I used to use these containers for storing the filtered liquid plant food, and then this morning this happened. Fortunately I managed to get it over here, and as I was trying to lift it to tip it over, it cracked. The top came off, so that's not good. Which way was it? It was that way around. So it just cracked, and I split a little bit, but I've got this lot out of it, and then I'll tip this into the barrels because I'm not going to use these anymore, obviously. That could have been nasty if that had happened when I was carrying it. It would have been all down me. I'd have stunk for a week, but fortunately it happened when it was here. So I've got these two barrels set up here by the greenhouse. I've got the horseradish here, but I've got the water barrels there, so filtered liquid plant foods can be sitting here and they should be fine. And I've leveled these barrels. This, although it's concrete, it wasn't level, so I've had to do a little bit of jiggery pokery down there to get it level, but now it's pretty level. So this is level, and this is level as well. There's nothing in them yet, but I will fill those. I've got to decant these barrels that are under the apple tree that I made last year, so that should be ready. I'll put these into those barrels once I've decanted and filtered it. And I've got one more of these left, but I'm a bit wary of lifting this now in case the same thing happens again. I might tip some of it into something else and do it in stages, because the last thing I want is to go home smelling of comfrey tea. It stinks. And now you can see how that sort of works. It's keeping that tomato up here, so there's a lot of air down here, so it doesn't get mold or mildew on it when it's a bit wet. Same here. These all lean over. I mean, obviously they've been sitting in pots, so they're not leaning right, but they will. And I've planted the rest of the bed. I've put in courgettes, lots of courgettes. More courgettes than most people would put in, but then I have a lot of customers for courgettes. Everybody likes them. People can't get enough of them, so there'll be no excess. So I've got the tomatoes, and then I've got some marigolds to keep the white fly off them. And I've got some borage as well in there, and that will attract hoverflies. The pots are Swiss chard that I only potted up recently, so they're a bit small. The weeds are bigger than the Swiss chard, so I've left it for now in the pots, and then I will plant them when they're a bit bigger. And I'll put a couple of amaranth in there as well. There's a bit of a gap there. And then I've got a few bits of parsley dotted around at the back, and it doesn't mind being shaded out by taller things. So when everything gets going, this bed should be pretty full.